Welcome to the first video of the autumn season. I'm honestly so excited to share with you my seasonal plans in terms of reading, movies, and in general fun activities that I want to do this time of year. I'm really trying to find a balance between doing all the fun stuff I want to do, but also not pressuring myself too much to have the perfect autumn, because sometimes it can definitely feel that I'm just constantly thinking, have fun, have fun, have fun, and then don't really get to enjoy the moment. I'm sure some of you can relate. Hopefully all of that will be documented in a series of vlogs I will be doing over the course of the next month and a half or maybe 2 months. But today let's talk about my plans. I tried to have a loose plan in order to allow myself to have that flexibility. So this is more like the vibe I'm chasing. And we have a lot to talk about. So let's just start. I've created an unreasonably large reading list. Obviously, there's no way that I'm going to get through all of these. I'm not even going to try to, but these are just the things that my heart's been gravitating towards. So I wanted to set some books aside to make it easier for myself to mood read. I guess before we start, I should say that all of my plans will be happening in context of the Halloween-a-thon, which is an amazing community event run by Kelsey from Slime and Slashers, and it's for everyone. You can choose to read, watch movies, do activities, all of those things, or just one of those things. It's mostly for people just to come together and enjoy the season. So I'll make sure to link her announcement below in case you want to join. It's not too late. And there's this really cute board game that she has designed that I will be playing, and each person can adjust their own rules. So on my next vlog, I will show you how I set it up and what my rules are and how I'm going to fit all these things that I'm going to be talking about. So as I was saying, I've divided the books into little subcategories. So depending on my mood, I can go straight to what I'm looking for. And the first category is short stories. One thing that really contributes to my seasonal stress is that I tend to be quite busy. I make a lot of social plans and just other types of cozy plans for myself. So I usually don't have as much reading time as usual. So if at some point I'm really tired and I don't feel like I can get into a full-length novel, that's the perfect time to read a short story. So the first thing in my horrifying pile of possibilities is Edgar Allan Poe, of course, a classic, and everything he writes captures the vibe of the season so well. It's just so dark and moody and honestly just delicious. Here I have The Fall of the House of Usher and Other Stories. I've already read quite a few of these, but I'd actually like to read some of his poems, which again, they're a perfect bite-sized piece for when you need a quick dose of something spooky. Or I might just revisit some of my favorite stories of his. The next one is actually for another booktube event. There are a bunch of people involved in this, but off the top of my head are Roy from Roy Reads Anything and MJ from Reading This Live, and the event is Occult October, and it is about a specific genre called the occult detectives genre, which I've been wanting to get to for ages, but I've never had a chance, so this is the chance. And it just so happens that I have this book from the British Library Tales of the Weird collection, which is The Ghost Slayers, Thrilling Tales of Occult Detection. I don't know much about these subgenre, but the description in the back says, this beguiling subgenre follows specialists in occult lore, often with years of arcane training, investigating supernatural occurrences and pitting their wits against bizarre, terrifying, and deadly forces. This is perfect for late September, early October, when maybe you don't want to go full-on horrifying, but definitely something supernatural with a touch of mystery. I think this is gonna be so perfect. Obviously, I also had to choose some options from my ebook library. So in the short story category, we also have Halloween, classic stories from the season of Samhain. I actually ended up pre-ordering the physical edition of this as well, because the British Library just does these beautiful designs, and this one is just so cute with that holographic pumpkins. I just couldn't resist. I go back to classics time and time again, so I think it's gonna be worth the purchase. What really drew my attention about this book is that it is classic stories, so older stories spanning from 1780 to the 1970s, but it promises to deliver a lot of hidden gems that have never been republished after, including some works of poetry. So I thought it sounded very promising to find something kind of unexpected. And then I have 2 ebook options for a Halloween short story collection of more modern writing. One is a new release called October Screams, a Halloween anthology. But I also have this one from 2022, which is called Literally Dead, Tales of Halloween Hauntings. And I think these would be quite similar, so I think for simplicity I'm just going to choose one or the other, but I have no idea which one. I like this cover better, but obviously this one is more recent, so I'm just leaning towards that one. I have no idea. We'll see. The next category is random novels and novellas that are not necessarily set on Halloween, but they just seem like the kind of horror that I'd enjoy this time of year. The first one is a bit long, so that's why I'm a bit skeptical I'd actually get to it. But it is The Last Days of Jack Sparks by Jason Arnott. This is a possession book, and I always enjoy reading about possession this time of year because it scares me, like actually scares me. And I've heard this one's quite scary, but also seems to have like a fun twist to it because it's about a journalist that has been researching the occult for a book, but he gets in a little bit of like social media heat because I think he's not very respectful about the whole thing. So it seems to be kind of humorous, maybe. I guess in general, it's a possession book that I wanted to read for ages. Then I have 2 really small novellas because novellas are quick to read and maybe that's what I'll be in the mood for, most likely. The first one is The Pale House Devil by Richard Kadri. This sounds very interesting because it's about a pair of mercenaries, which I'm actually not sure what that means, but I think it's people who get paid to do dirty jobs. But one of them's like a living human and one of them is an undead person. I got no idea what that means, but sounds intriguing. And they get sent for a job to like a haunted mansion and something goes wrong. So I just feel like this could be really quick and really fun and hopefully also really scary. Then I have Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Kho, which I've heard mixed reviews about, but I think I would like it. And this is about a wedding taking place in a Japanese mansion that's haunted. And the ghost sounds really creepy. And the criticism I've heard is that the language is unnecessarily complicated, maybe over embellished, but I think that could be a plus because usually that kind of thing may not contribute a lot to the story but just creates an atmosphere, and it is this time of year when I tend to care more about atmosphere than story anyways. So I don't know, it sounds good to me. Then I have seasonal reads, which are books that do take place during Halloween and therefore really capture the feeling of living through the season. The first option is All Hallows by Christopher Golden, which take place on Halloween night during 1984. And actually I'm not sure what this is about because the description in the back doesn't give up that much. It says that it's about 4 children that turn up to a house really scared, saying that there is this man chasing them, and basically the community has to figure out what's happening. It also sounds like it could include a lot of family drama, which I highly enjoy. So except for the fact that it's also quite long, I would love to read this. Then we have a booktube darling that for some reason I've never read, which is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. And even though this is also long, it's YA, so it possibly reads quite fast. Obviously this is about a killer clown, but there is also a conflict between the older and younger generations in this town, and I'm actually not sure if this takes place during Halloween, but I classified it as seasonal because the whole cornfield setting reminds me of the type of activities that people do during this time of year. And for this category, I also have 3 ebooks. The first one is Halloween Slaughter by Sergio Gomez, which is the continuation to the novella Camp Slaughter, which was, in my opinion, a quick fun read in which we follow a serial killer who stalks these camp's grounds looking for the perfect victim that will fit the very specific description he's looking for. It's kind of messed up and fun. Then I think this finally has to be the year I read Benny Rose, The Cannibal King by Hailey Piper. I think this book is cursed to me because I have started it, I think 3 times during the Halloween season, and it's not that I don't like it. For some reason, I just can't finish it. This is about a girl who moves into a new town where there is this urban legend about Benny Rose who's supposed to come out on Halloween. And then I think they're at a party and the power goes down and they're kind of trapped at the party, and I think they find out the truth about this urban legend. And finally, I have this tiny novella called The Crypt of Blood, a Halloween TV special. I'm obsessed with books about TV shows, or actually movies about TV shows as well, like Late Night with the Devil. This seems to have a similar vibe, but with vampires. It's about a TV crew that's filming an adaptation of this vampire story called The Crypt of Blood, and they're doing it as a Halloween special. We know that something went very wrong, and it was captured on camera. And we get to read all about it. Then I have this audiobook that I don't know anything about, but it was on my library's catalog and it sounded cool. So it's a middle grade book. It's called The House by Raylan Drake, but it's a part of a series called Mason Falls Mysteries. And I'll just read the description to you because, as I said, I don't know anything about it. And the old abandoned house at the end of Grace's Street is a local legend. All the neighbors say it's haunted, but every Halloween someone leaves candy on the front porch. Grace and her friends decide to investigate, hoping to find out once and for all if someone or something really is haunting the place. But what if there is more to the house than there seems? So more likely than not, it's a cute mystery. Then an absolute classic, The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. I've heard that the writing on this one is very lyrical, and even though that works really well for some people to do on audio, it's the opposite for me. I need to see the words on the page to understand what's happening. So I'll give it a go, and yeah, we'll just see. As an audiobook, I already started actually The Last Girl by Goldie Moldavsky, and that's a title in the UK, but in the US it's called The Mary Shelley Club, which is a much better title in my opinion. So I'm going to refer to this book as The Mary Shelley Club. This is a YA, so it reads super fast, and there is a bit about Halloween party, but it's generally not set during Halloween. However, the spooky vibes are top-notch. I'll tell you why. This is about a girl who's changed schools because something traumatic happened to her, so they had to move cities. So in the new school, she comes across this mysterious club called the Mary Shelley Club, and what they do is they play pranks on people. They play horror pranks on people. So she joins and is super happy, but then someone starts playing tricks on them. Not necessarily pranks, but like actually dangerous things. And now that someone's targeting, they kind of have to figure out what's going on. Obviously, just the idea of planning horror pranks is very seasonally appropriate, but all the kids in the club really love horror movies as well, so there's a ton of references. So yeah, this is quite fun. My next category, which is quite big, is nostalgia, because there's something inherently playful and childlike about Halloween with the candy and the costumes, and sometimes we just want to relive that. So I actually have 4-point horror options. The first two are obviously Halloween Night and Halloween Night 2 by R.L. Stine. This sounds really silly. It's about a girl who hates her cousin because the cousin stole her boyfriend, and she's planning a revenge that's going to take place during a Halloween party. And obviously things are not going to go to plan. Then I have Funhouse by Diane Ho. This is not Halloween related, but funhouses always just give me that playful horror vibe. And this is about a fun fair where accidents are happening, and this teenage girl seems to think someone is responsible for all of them. And then we have The Mummy by Barbara Steiner. For this one, I was inspired by a trip I took recently to the Egyptian Museum in Italy, and I will talk about that a little bit more on my vlog, I think. But I mean, mummies are just like a classic Halloween monster, so I thought it would be fun to read about it. And then I have 3 short story collections for kids. The first one is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. This is a classic. I don't think I have to elaborate much on this one. And some of them are super short, so again, easy for when you just have 10 minutes. Then I have this Mexican short story collection called Socorro by Elsa Bornemann. Socorro just means like help, like a cry for help. Actually, this is a book from my childhood that I brought back from home during Christmas. I realized I don't actually remember any of the stories, so I thought it would be fun to see if my memory gets jigged around. These are unfortunately not available in any other language, but don't worry, I'll let you know if they're any good. And finally, I have Stein Tinglers by R.L. Stine. I considered reading a Goosebumps book, but I read all of them, most of them multiple times, so I thought I'd try some new R.L. Stine. I still love him, I think I always will, so there's no way I won't like this. The next category is horror non-fiction. The first one is not so much horror as morbid, and that is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematorium by Caitlin Doughty. And this is more alluding to the fact that this season is not only Halloween season, but Dia de Muertos season. So I think it's a really good chance to just reflect about death as a part of life. And there's honestly no one better to tell us about this than Caitlin, who has been working in the business of disposing of dead bodies for ages. I realize disposing sounds somewhat bad because it sounds like we're putting dead people in the bin, but it's more about what we do with the remains of our loved ones that have died. That's what I meant to say. Then I have this really interesting book that is somewhat in the intersection between fiction and non-fiction. Let me explain. The book is Haunted Voices, an anthology of Gothic storytelling from Scotland. So this is a compilation of stories, scary stories that have been passed through the generations in Scotland by oral storytelling. This is the first time they've actually been compiled in writing. So I don't think it's my place to say whether these stories are fictional or not, because that's not the point. And I say it could be even considered as non-fiction because it's just oral tradition. Someone said this happened to them and then they told it to someone and that someone told it to someone else. So as I said, there's no one that has come out and said, I made this up, and there's never gonna be. But I think that's the beauty of it. And this has an amazing audiobook where people tell you the story as if they were telling it to you in this oral storytelling tradition. So it's just such a unique, fascinating experience to read along with the audiobook. It just feels like your grandma telling you a scary story, and it's so fun. Then I have the Mammoth Book of True Hauntings, over 100 eyewitness accounts of modern day hauntings from around the world. That's such a long title. But this is quite similar in that it's people telling their testimony of something supernatural that happened to them. And I think that's so scary because when I read this, I think, oh my god, if this happened to you, it could happen to me as well. It might not be real, but maybe I will think it's real and I'll be scared. At this point, it doesn't matter if I believe or not, because I could have an experience that's unexplainable and therefore scary, and the idea is scary in itself. And the last in this category is Edinburgh After Dark, Vampires, Ghosts and Witches of the Old Town. This is written by a paranormal investigator that has tracked down a lot of the urban legends that have taken place in Edinburgh, and believe me, there are so many of them. And I thought these would be super fun because maybe for a vlog I can read some of these and then try to go to those places. I feel like many of those places I will have already gone, but it will be a different experience after reading the scary thing that happened there. And I could take you there with me as well. So yeah, we could all get scared together. The last non-fiction book I have is an audiobook. This is proper non-fiction. This one is called, it's a really long title, The Anatomy Murders, being the true and spectacular history of Edinburgh's notorious Burke and Hare and of the man of science who abetted them in the commission of their most heinous crimes, by Lisa Rosner. So, in case you don't know, Burke and Hare were two serial killers, super famous in Edinburgh, almost Jack the Ripper famous, to the point where there's also been like a lot of fiction created about them. It's like very, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my god, I just sat here for 5 minutes trying to think of this word, which is sensationalized. These crimes were so sensationalized throughout the history. Edinburgh has a huge history of like medical advancement, so the medical school here has always been huge. It was one of the first in Europe, I think. The point is that the medical students needed bodies to teach and to study the human body. So these two criminals, Burke and Hare, they started by robbing graves. I don't know if they robbed graves, but it was very common for people to rob graves and then sell these bodies to the medical students or the doctors. And these two guys decided that was too much work, that they would just kill people and then sell them. And anyways, the reason I found this book in the Halloween catalog of the library is because supposedly the first murder, I think, happened on Halloween night. I have never heard that before. I don't know if it's true, but I guess it's true because it's in the book. The other thing that drew my attention is that the delivery of this book does not seem as sensationalist as some other things I've seen. It says that The Anatomy Murders is the first book to situate their story against the social and cultural forces that were bringing early 19th century Britain into modernity. So I think in general this could be a very interesting non-fiction that I could start reading during this season and then carry on for a couple months if I want to. This is the last category, I promise, and there's only 2 books. The category is just different formats. So the first one is a poetry book. I chose Where Decay Sleeps by Anna Chung, which is specifically a horror poetry. I actually don't know if I'll get to this because, as I mentioned, there is poetry in other books, so I might get enough of that already with what I have. But this next one is a must. It's almost top priority. It's a graphic novel, and it is the first installment of The Chilling Adventures of Salem, not of Sabrina. Who cares about Sabrina? This is about Salem. I do love Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I love rewatching the first season. I don't care what anyone says about the storyline. I don't think it's the best storyline, but the vibes are immaculate. And I did read some of the graphic novels as well, and I do enjoy them, but I want to know more about Salem. So this says, Salem the cat has always been known as Sabrina's familiar, but what happens when Sabrina's not around to protect him? Or, as is more the case, when he doesn't have to protect her. When Salem stumbles upon some unusual missing pet posters around Greendale, he begins an investigation that leads him to a disturbing discovery. But will curiosity kill the cat? I hope not. So yes, that is it. I realized that this video is already so long, and both my movie list and my bucket list are like very quick and not very well defined anyways. So I think I'll just add those in a little vlog clip whenever I can fit it. So yes, I won't keep you any longer. Please let me know what are your reading plans for the season. I'm really so excited to know. I've been watching everyone's videos, but if you don't have a booktube channel, I also want to know from you. So please let me know what's on your TBR. But other than that, you're free to go and enjoy your season, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye!